Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Superman issue 25. This is it. This is it. We get an introduction of yet another supervillain by the name of Synmar, as well as some news that the writer is leaving in December and Mark Waid's coming to DC. This is interesting stuff. Let's talk about it. Well, guys, Bendis is leaving. Now, we knew this back in June. I reported it back in June along with thousands of other YouTubers with much joy. And, well, it was sort of short-lived because Bendis then said, well, he's still going to be on the title for a long period of time. And it's like, really? In any event, he's leaving in December, so we got that to look forward to. And, unsurprisingly, Murphy's Law being what it is, this is actually Bendis' best Superman title, best Superman story, best Superman issue that he has written since he's been at DC. This is actually the best so far. That's not saying much, but it's much better than the first 24 issues. It's much better. So, again, Murphy was an optimist, but you know Murphy's Law, right? I mean, never fails. He's maybe finally starting to get a little bit better at some storytelling, and then Bendis is leaving in December. And it's a little bit sad, but that's how it works. But I'm glad because when you write Superman, it shouldn't be a learning curve, all right? You should already be at the top of your game when you write Superman, not on the downhill slide. But in any event, we got Mark Waid coming. Mark Waid coming to DC. Mark Waid is going to be writing an issue of Dark Knight's Metal, actually. The last stories of the DC universe. I think it's going to be one of the last Dark Metal one-shots is going to be called The Last Stories of the DC Universe, and I think Mark Waid is going to be doing a story in that, and then hopefully he's going to be writing Superman after December. That would be wonderful. Mark Waid finally writing Superman. I'm so looking forward to that. If that's the case, I hope that's the case. Fingers are crossed. But let's talk about Superman here. This is finally getting a little bit better. Now, interesting here about Synmar, this villain called Synmar. Out of the blue, we get this brand new villain. Now, one of the criticisms of Rogol Zaar, which was another villain that Bendis introduced and spent so much time on, is that we never really got to know Rogol Zaar. We really learned nothing useful about Rogol Zaar. Rogol Zaar just showed up. He destroyed the bottle city of Kandor. He was a warmonger. He just floated around space. Superman and Supergirl chased him around space. Rogol Zaar was caught. And he was no punishment was bestowed on Rogol Zaar. We found out that Rogol Zaar was Kryptonian, and that apparently some galactic forces, some members of the Galactic Circle conspired to essentially manipulate and use Rogol Zaar to destroy Krypton. None of the members of the Galactic Circle paid any price for what they did, and we know Jor-El, Superman's father, was punished by being sent back to when Krypton exploded. But Rogol Zaar was in captivity, and we still don't know much about Rogol Zaar other than that. We don't even know where Rogol Zaar is from, although we said it was Krypton, but how can it be Krypton? There's so much about Rogol Zaar we don't know, all because Bendis doesn't bother explaining things, and despite having a lot of time to do so. So the Rogol Zaar fiasco has been a disaster. It's one of the things that contributed to the low sales on Superman, and why Bendis' writing itself has been very poorly received. And here, right up front, I was really worried about this. We're getting a new villain introduced by Bendis. How can this be any good? He catastrophically failed with Rogol Zaar. Who the hell is Synmar? Well, I'm happy to report that we learn more about Synmar, this brand new villain, and we think it might be a villain. He doesn't really come across like a villain in this opening issue, but if he becomes one, so be it. But at least we learn much more about this new character called Synmar in one issue than we learned about Rogol Zaar over the course of multiple issues of Superman Action Comics and Supergirl. And so that's good. Now, Synmar, interestingly enough, Synmar is from the planet Synmar. Again, not a lot of originality went into the creation of this character, but the art is fantastic. Ivan Reis's art is fantastic. This is truly a wonder to behold. The art here is fantastic, and in particular, there are interactions here with between Clark Kent and Lana Lang. This entire issue juxtaposes scenes of Synmar on the planet Synmar and talking about the creation of the Synmar Utopica, which is the equivalent of Synmar's Superman. It juxtaposes the scenes going back and forth between scenes on the planet Synmar at different periods of time and scenes at different periods of time in Clark Kent and Lana Lang's life, and particularly Clark Kent and Lana Lang's interactions growing up. Now, as far as Synmar himself, just encapsulating it, apparently when Krypton exploded, the executive council, I'm making up that word, the High Council of Synmar, which consists of a bunch of people with these crazy names, which is, I don't know why Bendis bothers with these names. Are we supposed to remember these names? They don't exactly roll off the tongue. It's interesting. Ogleblum, Fernwald, Foyez, Dord, Deswes, Dreddy, Flitty, and Reswaz. Do those names flow off the tongue? I don't think so. But anyways, judges of all, the president, vice chair, the life of poets, secretary of states, prince of defenses, chief of the sciences of all, and the communicator. That's what all those people do for this planet of Synmar. Anyways, in the past when Krypton exploded, they noticed Krypton exploding, and they noticed they actually apparently saw the ship that Jor-El sent to Earth, carrying young Kal-El to Earth, and they were concerned about it apparently because they inferred, because they're very smart apparently, that this Kryptonian will grow up to be what they call a light god on Earth, a light god, which I inferred from the context and the manner in which they were speaking, that light god is their word for superhero. So they figured that they figured out that this young Kal-El was going to grow up to be a superpowered being, but Earth is such a primitive, basically mud ball in space, that it's not going to be a good thing if this Kryptonian grows up on Earth. Who knows what chaos can ensue if this superpowered being grows up on Earth? This is not a good thing. So they basically kept an eye on Superman or young Kal-El growing up on Earth, and through the years, they also decided that they wanted to create a Superman of their own, and on the planet Synmar, and they took their best soldier by the name of Eisno Alcor, and they basically manipulated him somehow, or not manipulated. He joined their cause. They did. We don't know what they did. We don't even know what power Synmar has. We have no idea. But they did something to Eisno Alcor to make him into a light god or a superhero on Synmar. And of course, they call him Synmar. And the people on Synmar, apparently they can all connect telepathically, I think, or they can experience each other. Apparently, all the people on Synmar can experience what Eisno Alcor is experiencing. I think that's because of the nature of his power. That's what they're implying. And it shows various scenes over the last... As Superman grows up, Synmar also grows up, and he has many battles, and it shows him battling Thanagarians at one point. So the Synmarians, are they called Synmarians? That word's never used in the comic, but Synmar, the people of Synmar, or the Synmarians, they interact with other people in the galaxy. And there's some confusion here because at the beginning it's suggested that that people of Earth don't even know of Synmar, or that's even when Superman was grown up and was beginning his career as Superman, the Synmarians believe that the people of Earth aren't even aware of the people of Synmar and aren't even aware that they exist, which I find really odd because they're certainly aware of of life on other planets. This is the DC universe after all, so I find it very hard to believe. There's some confusion here, but for the most part, it tells a really interesting story, and the art by Ivan Reis is fantastic, and it ultimately ends with the people of Synmar being attacked and largely destroyed, or largely there's a huge massacre of some kind, and Synmar, or Eisno Alcor, doesn't get there in time, and he holds one of his fellow Synmarians in his arms, and they say, you were supposed to be our Superman, and ultimately making him feel bad because he obviously failed. And so Synmar, of course, Synmar apparently doesn't know who Superman is. He knows that this stupid creature, or a stupid scenario involving Superman, and the word stupid is used by the Synmarians themselves, that the controversy surrounding them viewing Krypton, it caused quite a controversy on Synmar, apparently, that when they witnessed this rocket being shot off to Earth from the doomed planet Krypton, carrying this person that they knew was going to become Superman. That created a lot of controversy on Synmar, such that it motivated them to create their own Superman, leading to Synmar. Now, so Synmar himself, though, this Eisno Alcor, doesn't know who Superman is, and it ends with him wondering who Superman is, holding a dying Synmarian in his arms, while I think most of Synmar has been destroyed. So ultimately, Eisno Alcor, this Synmar now, is going to be looking for Superman. Why? He can't possibly blame Superman, or is he? Is it going to be one of those ridiculous motivations? What would Synmar's motivation be to hate Superman? Superman had nothing to do with his creation, and or at least Superman didn't actively get involved in it. If the people of Synmar created the Synmar Utopica, known as Eisno Alcor, if they gave him his superpowers because of something that they saw when they viewed Superman remotely from light years away, I don't know how that's Superman's fault, but it almost feels like that's a strange motivation to become a supervillain. But then you look in the pages of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman supervillains have really odd motivations too, and they blame Wonder Woman for the oddest things. But in any event, that Synmar angle is interesting. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about Synmar. I'm more interested in the Lana Lang Clark Kent interaction here, because I'm curious, because the continuity here, that the DC universe right now is a mess in terms of continuity. We got death metal going on, and we know from the issues of Lois Lane issue 10 in particular, that the people of the DC universe do have memories of different incarnations of themselves, in different timelines and in different places, on different worlds, and in the multiverse. Now, what the hell does that have to do with this issue? Well, frankly, this is, on the surface, this is just Lana Lang. She works for the Daily Star, and it shows at different periods of time. It shows Lana Lang when she was young as a teenager. Clark Kent asks her to a dance. She politely, diplomatically shoots him down, but says, "I really like you, but we're just friends." And Clark Kent, sort of mopes and gropes, and you could tell Clark Kent really likes Lana Lang. This is nothing new. And then it flashes forward to the future, where Lana Lang is now getting a job at the Daily Star, and because she knows Clark Kent, they want her to interview Clark Kent, and so she interviews Clark Kent, and it's clear that you get the impression between Lana Lang that it's that it's a little bit hard to figure out what history and continuity Bendis is playing with here, because Bendis writes a scene where Lana Lang was Superwoman, and Lana Lang tells Clark at one point that she didn't really want to be a Superwoman, that she realized that it really wasn't the life for her. The superhero life wasn't really for her. And then she asks Clark these questions, and she looks through Clark Kent's yearbook, and she sees pictures of Clark Kent, looking all sad in the background when he was a young teenager. And then he sees a picture of Clark Kent being really happy with Lois Lane. And I'm not sure what Lana Lang is thinking. Is Lana Lang surprised that Clark Kent had a crush on her? I mean, she knew that. Is she resentful of Clark Kent? I'm not really sure where Bendis is going with what he's trying to say about Lana Lang. I'm a little bit confused. Also, the continuity really is screwed up here, because when Lana Lang was Superwoman, if you recall, going back in the early stages of DC Rebirth, Lana Lang got her superpowers from New 52 Superman dying. And as a matter of fact, even Lois Lane at one point died and became a ghost, and it was really it was a mess. And then we got into Superman Reborn, where Superman, the New 52 Superman, became sort of like the rebirth Superman, and that was very, very choppy and very this is a little bit confusing, and I'm trying to make sense of it. And I listened to the Weird Science DC podcast, and those guys are just as confused as I am, or a little bit, or they're asking the same questions, and I was hoping they would know the answer because they remember more of these storylines than I do. It's all the Corona I drink. But in any event, I'm a little bit confused on the continuity, and I guess I'm not the only one. But if you guys can figure it out, let me know, because it really seems odd that if this Superman, it even draws him like he's the New 52 Superman at one point in here when they do a flashback. So I'm not really sure what the timeline is. But then, if given the current state of the DC universe, maybe there's some sort of super meshing of all the timelines. But in any event, if I just try to focus on on the relationship between Lana Lang and Clark Kent, it's clear that Lana Lang is she's getting to know Clark Kent again, and she's got a lot of questions, and it's clear that they were friends, but I'm not really sure. Does Lana Lang have an ulterior motive here? Is it possible that Lana Lang might end up being a bad guy, or does she have another agenda here? She clearly has an inside track on Clark Kent. She knows him growing up. So they talk about their mothers. She talks about her mother preparing for Armageddon by doing a bunch of canning. Clark Kent says that Clark Kent makes a reference to his mother becoming much more easier to deal with when they had a grandson. And then Clark Kent talks about how him, Lois, and their son Jonathan, they have a very precarious life. They got a very different kind of lifestyle. And he seems very easygoing about it. And Lana Lang looks at their apartment and notices that, it doesn't really feel like it's lived in very much. And Superman acknowledges that. And even he says, even Lois Lane says it looks like a set in a movie studio that hasn't been used yet. And that's true. It's because they don't, it does say something about the lifestyle of Superman, Lois, and Jonathan. And Jonathan, of course, at one point, Superman makes the comment that Jonathan, his son, he's off in boarding school, which is, of course, in the DC universe, apparently boarding school is the 31st century. So there's a lot going on here, but at a minimum, though, this is far more interesting of an issue than any issue of Superman that has come before. Because at least we learn a lot about Synmar right out of the gate. I'm interested in knowing what the exact continuity is with Lana Lang. I'm interested in this relationship between Lana Lang and Clark Kent. What is the continuity that they're building on here? What does Lana Lang feel for Clark Kent? Does she always just thought of him like a friend, but what does she feel like now? Does Lana Lang know? Did Lana Lang know that Clark Kent was Superman? There's a scene in here where she ostensibly, it looks like maybe there's a scene where when she's in the Daily Star, she sees Superman outside the window of the skyscraper battling Lex Luthor, and there's a look where Superman looks at her, and there's a look of recognition there. Are we to understand that Lana Lang is just discovering that Clark Kent is Superman at that moment, and she recognizes him? Or did she always know? We don't know this. In this new DC universe, I'm not sure what the history between Lana Lang and Clark Kent is, but that's the thing that I found most interesting here. So overall, I actually really like this issue in terms of the questions and that it's set up. The art was fantastic. My God, and the colors just popped off the page. I was very impressed with this. Unfortunately, of course, we know that it's going to end in a couple months. It's going to end in December, but at the same time, I'm not going to lose much sleep over it. I'm already looking forward to Mark Waid. But if maybe Bendis can go out on a high note with some semblance of a story that actually makes sense. The language is a little bit off for Synmarians again. I don't know. I always sort of criticize the inclination of some writers to, whenever they're writing an alien language, they still insist on making the language sound alien, even when they do a translation into English. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to, why not why not just tell us exactly in English what they're saying and have a little translation box? You know what I mean? So, because they always seem, even when they do a direct translation, they try to make it sound alien, even in the way that you read it. And it's like, come on, like. Anyways, it is what it is. I thought it was okay, guys. Tell me what you think of Superman issue 25. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, Comic Boom out.